Hey everyone, it's Karnak, your buddy and pal, Star Wars Armada Explained. We're going to be looking at the TIE Advanced today for the card we're going to be looking at for the Empire. So it's a Imperial Squadron. So the TIE Advanced, you don't really see on the play table all too often. And my point is to get into rule interactions and things like that. But just real quick, part of the reason why you really don't see the TIE Advanced all too often is largely due to the fact that it's all right for what it does, but is it all that great? Eh. But let's dive right in. So the TIE Advanced uh, is a squadron that's essentially the ship that Darth Vader flies in A New Hope. If you played like TIE Fighter games or anything like that, it's in there. I love those kind of games. But let's take a look. So the TIE Advanced Squadron, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see its symbol. Opposite of that, you'll see its point cost, 12 points. So, an X-Wing is 13 points. The TIE Advanced, it's not unique. It means you can bring as many of them as you want. For a standard 400-point game, you can take 134 points in squadrons. So the TIE Advance, that little yellow box there, signifies the amount of distance it can travel. It can travel a distance of 1 to 4. The next box is its hull value, 5 hull. Next one there is you got your anti-squadron armament, which is 3 blue die. And then its anti-ship armament is 1 black die. And the key word that it only has the one, is escort. Squadrons you're engaged with cannot attack squadrons that lack escort unless performing a counterattack. So I've already covered escort with like X-Wings and with like Black Squadron when I did TIE Fighters, but just to go over it again real quick. So escort means, for example, if I was engaging these two A-Wings and this Jump Master was nearby and the A-Wings are also engaged with that Jump Master, if those A-Wings wanted to shoot the Jump Master, they can't. They have to shoot my TIE Advance because they're engaged with my TIE Advance. And escort means if you're trying to attack another squadron that doesn't have escort, you have to attack me. I have escort. I'm escorting this squadron. You have to shoot me. Now with escort though, note there it has the word engaged. So if you're not engaged with the escort, you can shoot another squadron. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, if this debris field was in the way, you can see here that the A-Wing is still at distance 1 of the Jump Master there. It's at distance 1 of the Jump Master and the TIE Advanced in both cases. But when you go to draw line of sight, you'll see there that it is obstructed by this debris field. Obstruction blocks engagement, meaning that even though they are at distance 1 of this TIE Advance, they are not engaged. They can shoot the Jump Master. Or even a situation like this where he's got clear line of sight to the Jump Master, so there's no obstruction. But again, he's obstructed when you draw that line of sight to the TIE Advanced, or if I maneuvered that a little bit better. There we go. Something like that. Again, no obstruction, engage with the Jump Master, can shoot the Jump Master without losing a die. He could still shoot the TIE Advance if he wants to, but again, it's an obstructed attack. He loses the die. But again, he's not forced to attack escort. This is why typically you don't want to throw your escorts in the middle of obstacles, because then they can't escort anybody. It doesn't make them very good at their jobs if they can't engage and stop squadrons from shooting their friends. But that's just to cover escort real quick. So again, the A-Wings have to shoot an escort rather than something else. Now, if there are multiple squadrons of escort, you can pick and choose which escort you want to shoot at. You're not forced to just shoot just this guy or that guy. If they both have escort, you can choose which escort you want to shoot at. But again, can't shoot at the guy that lacks escort. All right. Want to make sure I was covering that. So an X-Wing, to compare them, that's who their comparison is to, is X-Wings. So X-Wings are 13 points. Sure, X-Wing is only speed 3, again 5 hull, but they throw 4 blue anti-squadron die. And yeah, I mean, they have a red anti-ship die, but they also have bomber. So, they essentially have 3 sides where they can miss compared to a black die where there's only 2 sides that can miss. But X-Wings, if they roll that critical effect as bomber, they potentially can deal a face-up damage card. On the red die, they had that 1 of 8 chance of rolling double damage. TIE Advanced, all they can ever do is just 75% of the time it's 1 damage to a ship. Or even with the 3 blue die, they're no better than a TIE Fighter, which also throws 3 blue die. And also, typically with the TIE Advanced squadrons, there's not much you really need to escort, because with the Jump Masters being speed 4, you really, if somebody's going to commit to come after Jump Masters, it means they're typically overextending and coming into your flak field, and they're also then getting away from their carriers, which then can no longer command those squadrons. There's just not a whole lot of use for them, and that's kind of why you don't see them, is because their anti-squadron capability sucks, because there's no reroll. They're not cheap like TIE Fighters. They're not disposable. That's kind of why you don't see them around. Another reason why you see more generic X-Wings is because they're backed up by Jan Ors. She can brace. She can help prolong their lifespans. Empire, they have Dengar, which he provides counter 1, which, sure, you get a 50-50 chance of maybe dealing a damage. There's just no comparison. That's why you don't see them very much. Now, just because you don't see the generic TIE version very much, you do see the other variants. Why is that? Let's dive into Tempest Squadron. So Tempest Squadron is unique, means you can only have one of them in your squadron ball. He's 13 points, so he's 1 point more. All the same stats. He still has escort, but he gains bomber. And it's amazing just how adding 1 keyword, so bombers, your critical icons also added damage, and you can also resolve critical effects. So now he's got a 25% chance to also deal double damage now. And boy, I mean, you're bringing him. I mean, yeah, the escort, it's kind of hit and miss with that, but I've seen Tempest Squadron do some amazing things because he has that bomber keyword. It's largely, you're just there to have like a small buffer for maybe a Jump Master or another squadron. But if you're going up against somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of squadrons or has no squadrons, you get so much value out of that bomber keyword. And that's kind of where you'll see some use of Tempest coming in, where if you feel like you need escort, then you can spend that extra point, get the bomber keyword. And that's Tempest. And again, by and large, you still don't even see Tempest all that much, largely because you get the man himself, Zarek Storm. So Zarek Storm is unique. Again, can only have one of them in your fleet. He's a double brace ace, and instead of throwing 3 blue die, he throws 3 red die. So he still has the 1 black die. He just again has escort, but he's only 15 points. He is the cheapest double brace ace with escort in the game right now, and he's fantastic for that, because the Alliance, their aces are way more expensive for double braces. Well, not way more expensive, but they definitely are more expensive. And so if you just need a cheap source, just a one-time use, it's kind of like you don't need to bring 2 or 3 TIE Advanced. Just bring him, because he's going to give you the longevity and lifespan of typically 2 to 3 TIE Advanced. Well, maybe not 3, but definitely 2. And so he's just really good, cheap escort, and he's great in that role. Just don't expect him to hit anything for anti-squadron, because 3 red die, he just never hits anything. Because again, he'll only do damage on hits, and there's only 3 sides of the 8 that will help him. Well, I mean, technically 4. You have one accuracy icon, you have 2 regular hit icons, and then you have a double hit. But again, you have to roll at least the hits to deal damage. And more often than not, you're rolling sides that are not going to help him at all. That's where his card ability comes into play. While attacking, you may choose another friendly squadron at distance 1. If you do, that squadron suffers 1 damage, and you may re-roll any number of attack die. So if you do pair him with like another TIE Advanced, and say he's going to attack this A-Wing, he throws his 3 red die, and as you see there, like, oh, that's just a really crappy attack. I didn't even deal any damage. Well, you know what? I'm going to peg this TIE Advance a hull damage. I'm going to re-roll all 3 of these red die, And hey, at least now you at least did 2 damage instead of nothing. That's actually, about average. You're going to do maybe on average 2 damage with Rod Die. But although you could get that coveted triple double and you just absolutely just murder something, that can always happen. That's the nature of triple red dice. You can also use this ability when you're attacking a ship. If you do throw the black die, I mean, again, 75% of the time you're going to roll that damage, or in that situation, I didn't get anything, you know what? Peg that tie advanced, re-roll that die, and hey, at least I got a damage that time. So, but again, still same issue with escort is just that Imperials are more specialists. They're not generics like rebels are, and just the TIE bomber itself just isn't all that great. So it doesn't really you don't really need the escort. But again, cheap escort, Zarek is great for that. Just again, don't expect him to hit anything because you will always be disappointed. All right, let's get to the Dark Lord of the Sith himself, Darth Vader. Again, he's unique. You only have one of him, meaning you can't bring the officer, can't bring the commander, can't bring the boarding team. There is only the one and only Darth Vader. And so this Darth Vader, he's got, for 21 points, he throws 3 blue die and a black die for anti-squadron. Again, still has escort, and his card ability reads, while attacking, each of your critical icons adds 1 damage to the damage total. So for the generic TIE Advance, their damage, they can only roll hits, and their damage potential only caps out at essentially 3. Well, with Darth Vader, with that black die, again, you got the hit crit symbol in there, he potentially can roll 5 damage. You roll your 3 blue die, you roll your black die, and, there you've got the 3 damage and accuracy, which is really good. But if this had rolled into a hit crit, hey, I just did 4 damage, and I still have an accuracy icon. And what's great about Vader is essentially he has a very big potential of rolling, with blue die, you've got the 4 hit symbols, 2 crit symbols, 2 accuracies. So, I mean, you've got a very high chance of just rolling damage. Essentially, he can't miss because typically, unless you're attacking generics, accuracies are always going to be beneficial. And then the black die, you've got a 25% chance of missing, sure, but you also have a 25% chance of dealing double damage, that's great. I mean, you can't knock him. He's super good. Again, why don't you see Darth Vader very much though? Well, a little expensive at 21 points, and also with this huge ability to just rock out so much damage, he just they murder him. People just like, oh, I don't want this guy dealing 5 damage to my squadrons. I'm just gonna go straight up murder him right away. Darth Vader will typically only survive, maybe at most 4 attacking squadron activations, and then he's done and dusted and gone. But I've had some success taking like Darth Vader and like Merrick Steele and Jendon and having some fun with that. Just because Darth Vader is a very strong anti-squadron attacker. He's not as good as Wedge, but he's definitely on par with Wedge. And again, with the extra speed there, you can really kind of maneuver him and get him into position. Especially if you combine him with flight controllers for 4 blue and a black die. I mean, really good. Especially since, again, he's got escort. If you're bringing Dengar, who can give counter 1 to him, essentially, he can counter back at targets, and he's 75% chance of dealing a damage back. But yeah, that's all the TIE Advance squadrons that have been released so far. That's Darth Vader. Not much else to really go over. There's no other crazy interactions or rule things going on, nothing like that. One fun thing I want to point out, though, about Zarek with his squad ability. So if you bring somebody like, where is that, Bosk? So Bosk, I haven't covered him yet, but just real quick. So Bosk has a special ability where if he suffered a damage, he gets to add a blue die set to an accuracy icon in his attack pool. Otherwise, he just rolls the 4 black die for anti-squadron and a blue-black for anti-ship. So a lot of people make the choice of just ignoring Bosk and never shooting him so he can't gain that bonus benefit. Well, if Z rolls up and shoots at a target, well, he can plink Bosk, and now Bosk gets his supercharged attack, and then Bosk can roll in like a boss and start murdering aces. And then that's a combination people have done that has found some success. I just want to make sure I was pointing that out. People have done that. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching the video. I've got nothing else going on here. Of course, if you feel like I missed anything, or just give me some comments of examples of maybe some TIE Advanced builds you've been bringing, I appreciate it. You guys are great. I'll see you all next time.